So not only have I made the one-shot boss build even one-shottier, I have also solved mass AoE trash clearing and absolutely speed blitzing through maps. I am very happy with this one, guys. Hello, my fellow Stormweavers. Today, I bring you my latest and greatest creation. No more cast on shock, no more cast on anything, pure lightning speed, teleporting, exploding, one-shot power. And the real important thing I've done here is maintaining that one-shot lightning conduit boss decimating setup I'd crafted, though improving it even further via also simultaneously giving us some proper speed mass AoE clearing kick. And yeah, we have dropped Arc now in favor of a new lovely combination. Casting our own ball lightnings to then teleport into them with lightning warp and just blast one-shot nuking everything in this huge AoE that we have absolutely skyrocket scaled to the nth degree. I have spent nearly $1 million gold refining the skill tree and testing with this, and I have reached a really good place I am super happy with. And one of the chief reasons I am is we still get to righteously abuse our double dipping strike twice shock application that is now up to 80% times 2, by the way, and lightning conduits, huge 100% more damage per 5% shock. So I'm up to 160, right? That is 3,200% more damage, which is why it's just one-tapping literally every boss. I'm up to tier 11 maps, about to hit tier 12, I am level 81, and it has just been comically easy to speed my way through, well, literally everything. Like, it's so comfortable. Nothing can stop you. Not swarms of enemies, not individual rares, certainly not bosses. And before, we were applying that shock kind of normally by hitting things with arc, doing lightning damage, and then scaling shock application because of that. Whereas now, swapping to this new little technique of teleporting into our own ball lightnings to blow up lightning warp, well, we can do it that much more effortlessly, because as you'll notice, once you've teleported with lightning warp, you leave this huge area equal to the area of the explosion, which we have and can scale massively, of shocked ground, well, on the ground. And what this will do is just instantly apply double stacks of shock to anything in this area on this shocked ground. There's no chance or RNG, it just puts it on them. Which is why you see on these boss clips that I'm preemptively putting this shocked ground under where the boss will become active, planting down the usual buffs, and then just one-tapping them with lightning conduit, all pre-set up, comfortable, easy. We don't even need to use Orb of Storms anymore, it's completely superfluous to the build. Not to mention, lightning warp is just really fun. 10 seconds of that shocked ground is so useful, but we also get to have inbuilt increased shock magnitude from it because of the gem quality effect. And the actual raw damage this thing does is colossal. 1,146 on the top end is really, really potent for the stage that I am at. Obviously, there is a large range roll here, but with us spamming that many out every single time, and then it all gets multiplied up massively by the shock, it doesn't really matter. We're also applying bloody lightning explosion with this too, and that translates into the shocked ground. You don't need to hit someone with the explosion for lightning exposure to go on them, they just need to walk into the area, which means as soon as somebody gets either hit by this explosion or steps into this huge area of crackling earth, they suddenly start taking upwards of nearly 200% more damage. And it gets even better from here once I get a little bit luckier with drops and can start adding more support skills with perfect jeweler's orbs and so on and such forth. This has more potential by far than I can even show you today, but given it's already trivializing deep endgame, yeah, I'm pretty damn chuffed. And it's also just plainly really entertaining to be going through maps, throwing out ball lightning, spam teleport exploding, cleaving through everything. You don't even really need to think or look or know, you just go through and explode. And then the real cherry on top, the pièce de résistance, is we are also now not using any cast on. We're not using cast on shock, or we've not started with cast on freeze or anything like that. No, we are keeping to pure Archmage, but also blink. Yes, we have worked it in. It's not required, it's not a DPS thing, but it is an incredibly good mobility thing. It's also a fantastic get out of jail free card. So you get to a group of enemies, you throw down your ball lightnings, you teleport, explode them, blink to the next pack, throw down this, explode them, blink to the next pack, and so on and so forth, and it just makes your clear speed ridiculous. It also means if you ever get surrounded by enemies or into an awkward situation, boop, and you are away, and then can throw ball lightnings back at them and teleport back in with massive amounts of damage. It is useful in every single aspect of the game, from survivability to just sheer clear speed, and I'm kind of absolutely adoring having it. On top of just working really thematically well with a teleport-based build in lightning warp explosions being our core way of dealing damage, with lightning conduit being our single target detonator. The synergies here are off the charts, and this is by far and away my new favorite way to play Stormweaver, and also by far and away the best build that I have crafted, and I'm really, really excited to get into the details so you too can enjoy it. It is really great to finally be able to trivialize things like breaches, like delirium, like the excavations with mass mobs spawning all around you, because the sheer frequency, size, and damage of your chain detonating AoEs is just off the scale, and nothing can actually even come close to you. Yes, you can one-shot rares manually once they're shocked up from your ground with your lightning conduit, which I do all the time if the moment arises, but make no mistake, you can just spam teleport on top of their face, and you will also cleave them in twain very, very quickly. There's really not a huge weakness here. You have everything you could want in an all-round build package. Monstrous AoE clear, and evidently monstrous boss killing. So without further ado then, let's get into this. And to be clear, we are still of course using Chaos Inoculation to become immune to Chaos damage, which is immensely helpful, on top of having a massive mana pool and huge mana regen with Mind Over Matter, while still retaining a barrier thanks to the amulet to become incredibly tanky. With that said then, let's get into skills. So we of course have Archmage on the go, and this is just a huge massive buff to all our damage per 100 mana, and it's the core of every Stormweaver build because it scales ridiculously, and honestly I really hope it doesn't get hit. In any case, as a little extra instant tip, make sure that you use your gem cutter's prisms to increase the quality of it, because the quality on Archmage just makes the scaling 2% harder per 100 mana, which is colossal. So have that on, have it activated, and that's all well and good. Then we have ourselves the blink. Now again, you don't need to have this. This is here because it's thematically fun, it's really potent at just getting places quickly, and is a really good get out of danger instantly button that can save you if you get surrounded. It does require you to have an extra 60 spirit reserved, which means you do need to have at least 160 total on top of Archmage, which means you need to have an extra 60 spirit from something like this chest piece here. But again, it is optional, it's not required for the build, unlike last time where you needed a chest piece like this because we were using cast on shock, which we now are not. So if you are using Blink, you can just kind of put whatever you want on it. A little bit less cooldown is fine, but there's nothing absolutely critical. As I said, we no longer need Orb of Storms, but we still do have conductivity on our actual bars. That said, I very rarely cast it because it's very rarely needed. Yes, it's another big, colossal minus 37% lightning resist, which is wonderful, but as you see from all the clips, it's completely overkill at the moment. It's for really pinnacle bosses and the like that need that extra little push, but taking the time to cast it is just a little bit less time until you get to your lightning conduit and one-shot the boss anyway, so it's worth having, but you're not going to be using it much. In any case, you want heightened curse, so it's just more effective. You want focused curse, so it pops quicker and is easier to apply, and then I do like Hex Bloom. If you're using it on trash, it'll keep spreading and make that more automatic. Then we do want Mana Tempest, which we no longer need to use just while kind of generally going around the levels, as we do way enough damage with just our exploding, but it is still very, very good for bosses. And not having to use it while clearing means we're not draining our mana, which is our health with it, so it's just safer. But against bosses, yes, you will be putting it down and then using your lightning conduit and one-shotting them. So on that, we want premeditation, so it amps an extra 15%, and then we want lightning mastery for +1 to its level, which is just an extra 2% damage. That said, if you have Archmage and you put the +1 in here and you gain damage, then use it on the Archmage, but as you can see, whether I have the +1 or not, I'm still just gaining 8% damage, so it's not super useful there at the moment, but there will be breakpoints. Then we get down to the core 3 skills that make all of this happen. First and foremost, your lightning conduit. You will only ever be pressing this really on a boss just as it becomes active and one-shotting it, occasionally a rare. So we just want to amp this as much as we can. Concentrated effect for just 40% more damage. We don't need the area to be that massive. We'll be next to what we're using it on anyway, so this is just a huge free bump. Then we give it 25% more damage, but it can't apply shock, which we don't need it to do because it consumes shock anyway. It's kind of redundant, so it's just free 25% more damage. Then we put inevitable critical on it, which means that, yeah, it will just crit when it goes off, as it's gaining this crit chance, and we're hardly ever casting it, so when we do bust it out for the boss, it will crit and do double damage, which is obviously a huge deal for the one-shot. If I could give it an extra support skill, if I had the Jeweler's Orb to do it, then we can put in a extra crit damage while lowering the chance to crit, as that's just counted by the inevitable crit damage anyway. Then we go to Lightning Warp, the main big deal here. Once again with this, I want to bring up Gemcutter's Prison, as increasing the quality of this is more magnitude of shock, which is everything. Other than that, we want to put it in Overcharge, so we get another 75% increased magnitude of shock, which of course affects the shocked ground it creates, which is huge, and the less duration doesn't matter because the shocked ground lasts for 10 seconds and just shocks things on it. Then we have Lightning Exposure, so we make enemies take even more damage when they step into said shocked ground, and then we also have Inspiration, so it costs much less mana to spam this, as it's actually quite expensive. 275 a cast means that I do see my mana slightly start to drip down while spamming it, and given our mana is our health, we want to curb that as much as possible. If you can cast it without losing mana, without Inspiration, then by all means replace it. Then we have Magnified Effect for that 40% greater area, and I have toyed many times over changing this for more damage, but I just can't get away from the fact that having such a big explosion circle is so much more useful for clearing maps. You'll just clip everything everywhere, and it really does the job. So that is that sorted, and of course, if you do happen to have 4 support skills for it, if you've got a perfect Jeweler's Orb, you lucky sod, then you can just give it some more damage. Finally then, we have Ball Lightning. Ball Lightning is literally only here so we can cast a load of them and then teleport to them, which Lightning Warp lets you do. So in order to facilitate that then, we have Unleash. This means that we can cast 2 extra Ball Lightnings when we cast Ball Lightning, which is obviously lovely. Then we have Scattershot, which is 2 more Ball Lightnings. So you see, every single time I cast it, I fire out like 6 Ball Lightnings on average, which is 6 teleports, which is more than enough to kill everything. Then we have Deceleration, so they go slower, which means they don't take you out of range of what you're killing too quickly, so you can kind of keep the explosions concentrated on the pack of enemies. After that, I would give it extra mobility with the mobile casting support gem, so you don't have to slow down as much when throwing them out, but other than that, this is just pure utility. And that's how that is all set up. And as I said, playing this is very, very simple. If I am about to fight a boss, then you just want to teleport to create the shocked ground, then you want to put down your Sigil of Power with your staff weapon swap, then you put down your Tempest, and then just hit that lightning conduit, and then pop, you will one-shot them. If you're just clearing maps generally, then you just want to fire them out, explode, spam, move on to the next area, fire them out, explode, spam, move on to the next area, fire them out, explode, spam, and so on and so forth. It's literally just 2 buttons, or 3 if you include blink, while clearing, and you won't really need anything else unless you feel, you're feeling extra spicy and you want to press lightning conduit to one-shot a rare. And yes, we are doing the usual swap to Sigil of Power by having a staff in your second weapon set, so that when you press it, you swap to the staff, use it, and then we set all of our other abilities to weapon set 1 by going here, pressing this arrow, and then just ticking 1 but not 2, so that when we press them, we swap back to our main wand and focus, which we want. Let's get into the skill tree then, starting with ascendancy, and no changes of course. We want strike twice, and then constant gale, and finally force of will, for that constant massive amounts of mana regen and cast speed, and then strike twice for the double shock that makes this whole thing tick. So let's go into this. As I said, I have changed this a lot, and I've finally reached a point I'm really pleased with it, so here we go. Heading right through your energy shield nodes to pure energy, curving left for open mind for more mana regen, and then heading up for more energy shield, and finally some more mana from mana blessing. And yes, the extra energy shield nodes literally just give us a bigger energy shield. They're not for funneling into Eldritch Battery, but we do need that shield buffer to be tankier, especially in higher tier maps, and having the Everlasting Gaze here is what lets us have an energy shield despite having Eldritch Battery, so that is important to take note, but we'll get into that when we get to the gear section, though that's come up a lot by now. Then we want to move on up from here to this intelligence, then we want to blank right and get energy shield and mana regen all the way to insightfulness, which is a hugely potent node for any Archmage setup. After that, we continue along the pathway, getting your intelligence, though that said, if you do need more dexterity or strength to actually use your dex and strength support gems, then you want to make these the dex or the strength to do so, not just intelligence. In any case, we go all the way around here in order to finally get alternating current for that lovely mana regen and shock magnitude. It's very, very important. Then we can return to the central highway as we go straight up all the way to the top and get this jewel slot. Then we want to head right and then up into here. Initially, you want to go straight up and grab pure power, which is a huge damage increase with how much int we have, and then go down for even more magnitude of shock. Ignore this little branch here for now. It's currently what I'm working towards with my level ups, but I'm not entirely sure about it, so we will get to that. Then you want to head right over here, pop up for 25 intelligence. More intelligence is more mana, which is more damage, and just more damage from the pure intelligence too. Then we want to curve down, get your extra mana regen, get even more extra mana regen, and then finally end up with Eldritch Battery, so our energy shield becomes mana, which is huge. Then we want to go up and finally get Arcane Intensity for another massive damage increase from all of our mana. Eventually I'll be up to 5-6k mana if I had perfect ideal gear, so yeah, things start to get crazy, and as I say, the potential is massive. Then we want to continue down this road, getting the next jewel slot, and then finally grabbing yourself Chaos Inoculation for that lovely immunity to chaos damage. Then we're going to head back down to this initial fork, and now we are going to go left, branching up in order to get some more elemental damage, but then mainly increasing lightning exposure effect, so we lower that res and amp up the damage every enemy takes from that shocked ground. Then we want to keep going and get this jewel slot here. Then we're going to branch up like so, and then pop into Eldritch Will. The 3% increased mana and energy shield is lovely, but this 20% of maximum energy shield as stun threshold is even lovelier. If you get surrounded and hit a lot, your character will just keep flinching because you keep getting stunned because you have no stun threshold, and that's just a death sentence. It won't even let you blink if that happens. So getting something like this is really crucial to not getting kind of just cheesily wombo comboed out of nowhere. Then we want to continue on, getting your intelligence as we go, hopping down here, initially going up and getting more intelligence, getting mind over matter along the way, and then grabbing this jewel slot as they're very important. Then we want to head over here in order to get touch of the arcane to amp arcane surge even more. Now we finally head left from here, initially poking up to get even more magnitude of shock, and then the elemental damage and resist is just a really potent little node here. Then we keep on going and eventually go up in order to get even more mana and energy shield, and then finally one more jewel slot and then this little cluster here, which does a lot for us. So initially then, it is larger area of effect on your spell. This is what makes it so massive, coupled with the 40% from the skill gem. Like, this is another huge increase, and you really feel it. But then we also take the inner path, as that's another 24% area of effect size, and then finally 20% damage, but also this knockback chance is really useful for keeping everything away from you, and thus you alive. So that's how the skill tree is currently shaping up, and I am, as I say, very pleased with it. After this, I am erring towards finishing amplification for even more lightning exposure, but I also kind of want to come down here and get more energy shield, but even more importantly, more stun threshold, so stuff like getting surrounded and stunned to death just can't happen anymore. Basically, if you're feeling tanky, then get the rest of electric amplification. If you're not feeling tanky, then go over here and get hallowed and heavy buffer. So, after that, your jewel slots. You are getting essentially everyone in reasonable range, and in all of them, you want ideally the following. At minimum and most important, 20% increased magnitude of shock. Every single jewel, you want magnitude of shock. After that, mana regeneration, lightning damage, things that help your energy shield, all of that is good, but the magnitude of shock is really what is most important on every single one of these. And yeah, there we have it. Then let's get into gear, and I will say if I had infinite divine orbs, I would be wearing very different gear, as there is some objectively better stuff out there that I'm aware of, that I want, that I just don't have, and hopefully I can eventually get it and do a build update for you guys, but a kind of mere mortal like us, this is what we're aiming for. We have ourselves then a wand. You want a +4 to all lightning skills, ideally. That's kind of the most important thing. And +2 on your focus, so we have that total +6. It really does a lot for you. After that, you are looking for as much energy shield as possible across all your gear, because that energy shield from your gear is what gets converted into mana from Eldritch Battery. After that, if you are going to use Blink, you need that extra 60 spirit from your robe, so keep that in mind. Then after that, what is most important is getting your res caps. I'm still a tiny little bit away, there's a lot of juggling back and forth, but also I haven't put any runes into 2 of my pieces of gear. If I put a cold rune in one and a lightning rune in the other, I would be res capped. But I don't feel squishy in the slightest, and I don't want to commit these really good pieces of gear to a particular res until I absolutely have to, so I'm just kinda holding off because, well, I don't have a huge amount of currency to spare, but do very much take note, you need to try and get to 75% in all your resists. It will make a huge difference, and you can use the runes to do it. Eventually, we'll be wanting 2% increased mana cores, soul cores in all of your gear, and our resist accounted for elsewhere, but that's a little bit beyond where I currently am. In any case, we continue then. You've got lots of energy shields, you've got your rankster skills, and your res capped. Past that, you want just raw maximum mana, and you can get that from literally just +2 maximum mana, and you can also get that from just pure intelligence on your gear. Both are really good. Then following that, you want movement speed on your boots up to 35%. It makes a colossal difference. You really want to try and make this happen. You will feel it. Stun threshold I find is very useful too, for obvious reasons. And then even things like getting this bit of strength here that I have means that I don't have to take strength nodes on my skill tree, so it does come back technically as mana. The same with the dex on my gloves. And then we kind of get to just just increased spell damage, increased lightning damage, increased damage as extra cold or extra lightning, and so on and so forth. And then, of course, ever reliable, everywhere you can get it, pure mana regeneration, like the 56% on my ring, will do you a world of good. It's quite straightforward to gear, honestly. Just mana regen, energy shield, handle your resist, and then obvious offensively good stats like skill ranks, and you will be happy as Larry. Uniques then. I have the Azure Amulet, which you really want. Again, it's what lets you still have a barrier despite having Eldritch Battery, and the actual affixes on it are wonderful too. This thing makes a huge difference, and ideally quality it up with a mana modifier so we can slowly increase it. Then we currently have the Midnight Braid Rawhide Belt as getting half the damage you take back as mana over 8 seconds, and our mana is our health pool. Essentially just means we take half damage restored over 8 seconds, which is really nice, and I don't mind the all resist too, and hey, the Lucky Corrupt for extra fire resist is pretty neat. However then, now that we have covered what we have and what you can reasonably get, ideally, you of course want the unique belt that increases the effectiveness of your rings by like 70%, which is just ridiculous. It just costs a billion divine orbs. And then eventually we will want the shield that drops from the Trial Master that lets you put in 3 if you get a Lucky Corrupt 2% mana gems, and that will give you a huge amount of extra total mana, which does outdo a good rare focus. But again, really expensive and not something I can get hold of yet, but I do want to throw that out there. I'm of course aware of it and I'm working towards it. But that is about it when it comes to the gear that you're working with. So there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. My now swapped to Ball Lightning, Lightning Warp, Explosion, Death to all in a massive ring, one-shot levels of damage, ridiculously fun to play with Blink involved, and still keeping that delicious Lightning Conduit one-shot setup on bosses, but now even easier to do thanks to Shocked Ground just doing all of the setup for you, so all you need to press is one button when the boss becomes active. It is incredibly satisfying, and I cannot recommend this enough. For now then, like if you've enjoyed this, subscribe and hit the bell for more, consider supporting the future channel on Patreon down below, and until we meet again, a goodbye.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.